My name is Emma, and I still don't know why my mother sent me and my younger brother, Noah, to stay with Aunt Margaret for a week. She had said it with a tone that made it sound final, like the decision had been made long before I was even told. She's a little strange, but absolutely safe, Mom had assured us, brushing my hair back before we got into the car. And you like her house? It's full of history. History was one word for it. The house stood at the far edge of Gravenwood, a town so small it barely appeared on maps. It rose above the countryside like some forgotten relic, all steep roofs and crooked windows, with ivy crawling over its stone walls. The iron gate squealed when we pushed it open, and Noah whispered, "It looks haunted." Aunt Margaret met us at the front steps. She was tall, thin, with hair the color of snow, and eyes that always seemed to be watching something just behind your shoulder. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Emma." "Noah," she said. "Come in. The house has been waiting for you." At first, it wasn't so bad. The house had an enormous garden, its paths lined with roses and hedges that twisted into strange shapes. The basement was stacked with shelves upon shelves of glass jars filled with jams, preserves, and pickles. The rooms upstairs smelled of lavender and old wood, and Noah and I quickly turned them into a playground for hide-and-seek. I filmed everything. I want to make a small vlog, a kind of rural summer adventure. The footage came out perfect, the golden light through the trees, the creaking staircases, even the secret little corners of the garden where Noah liked to sit. But the second night, things began to change. We had just finished dinner when Aunt Margaret grew unusually stern. Her voice dropped, and her hands shook slightly as she locked the doors. "Listen carefully," she said. "After midnight, you must stay in your room. No wandering, no peeking. Do you understand?" Her eyes darted to the windows as if someone might already be standing outside. Noah giggled nervously, but I frowned. "Why? What happens after midnight?" Her expression hardened. "You don't want to know." That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock struck 12, and the house fell into a silence, so heavy it pressed against my chest. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching on the gravel outside. With each step came a ragged breath, as though whoever, whatever was walking had been running for miles and had only just stopped to catch its breath. Noah stirred in his bed. "Emma, do you hear that?" I nodded, and together we crept to the window. There, in the garden, was a figure. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving in circles around the house. I raised my phone, switched on the camera, and zoomed in. My heart pounded as the screen adjusted, focusing on the figure's face, or what should have been a face. It was blurred, not pixelated, not out of focus, blurred, as though the phone itself refused to capture it. No matter how steady I held my hand, the image distorted, smeared into something shapeless. Noah clutched my arm. "Who is that?" The next morning, we asked Aunt Margaret. She had gone pale as soon as Noah mentioned the footsteps. "Don't speak of it again," she said firmly. "Don't look at it. And above all, don't let it into the house." Her voice cracked on the last words. That night, the footsteps came back, and by the time we woke, something was standing in the hallway. It wasn't Aunt Margaret, and it wasn't human. I don't know what woke me first. The creak of the floorboards, the soft rasp of something breathing just beyond our door, or Noah's trembling hand shaking my shoulder. "Emma," he whispered, his voice barely a thread. "There's someone in the hall." The clock on the nightstand glowed, 2:47 a.m. The house should have been silent. Aunt Margaret had bolted every door, latched every window. But the sound outside our room told me otherwise. I slid from the bed and tiptoed to the door, pressing my ear against the wood. At first, there was nothing but the faint hush of the wind. Then a shift, like weight leaning against the wall. The sound of air being dragged into ruined lungs. I held my breath and slowly turned the knob, just enough to open a sliver. What I saw will never leave me. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure. It was tall, impossibly tall, its head nearly grazing the ceiling. Its arms hung too long, like ropes of shadow stretching past its knees. And though the face was hidden in the dark, I felt it staring at me. Noah whimpered behind me, and the thing twitched. Not like a man turning, but like a puppet yanked on strings. The hallway lights flickered once, twice, then died, plunging everything into blackness. I slammed the door shut and shoved the dresser against it. My heart was beating so loud I was sure the thing could hear it. "Emma, what was it?" Noah stammered. I didn't answer. I didn't have words. We sat awake until dawn, the weight of silence pressing on us. No footsteps, no breath, just waiting. When the sun finally spilled across the floorboards, I dared to move the dresser. The hallway was empty, as though nothing had ever been there. But the wood around the doorframe was scratched. Long, jagged marks, carved deep, as if something with claws had tried to get inside. At breakfast, Aunt Margaret barely touched her food. Her eyes darted from us to the hallway and back again. "You saw it, didn't you?" she finally asked. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Noah nodded. She closed her eyes and whispered something under her breath, words I didn't recognize. Then she looked at us, her face pale, her lips trembling. "It knows you now," she said. "Once it sees you, it doesn't forget." The room seemed to shrink, the air heavier than before. I leaned forward, my voice sharp with fear. "What is it? Why is it here?" Aunt Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's patient. It will wait. And one night, you'll open the wrong door." That night, I didn't dare film. And yet, when the clock struck 12, I heard the garden gate creak open again. The third day was suffocating. Aunt Margaret went about her morning chores as if nothing had happened. She hummed quietly while hanging linens to dry, but her eyes flicked toward the treeline every few minutes, sharp and wary. She didn't have to say anything. Noah and I both felt the tension. The air around the house seemed heavier, like the walls themselves were bracing for something. I carry my phone everywhere, though I didn't dare look at the footage from the night before. Part of me feared that if I pressed play, something other than us would be watching back. After lunch, Aunt Margaret disappeared into town for supplies, leaving us alone in the house. The silence was unbearable. Noah suggested we play in the garden to distract ourselves. The sun was bright, but the garden didn't feel welcoming anymore. The hedges cast long, twisting shadows across the lawn, and every bird seemed to fall silent as we stepped outside. We walked the gravel path until we reached the old well in the far corner. Its stones were cracked, moss spreading between them like veins. Noah leaned over and dropped a pebble, but we never heard it hit the bottom. I was about to tell him to stop when I noticed something carved into the well's rim. At first, I thought it was just weathered stone, but when I brushed away the moss, I saw the words clearly. "Do not let him in." My chest tightened. It was the same warning Aunt Margaret had given us. Noah frowned. "Who do you think wrote it?" I didn't answer because that was when I saw the footprints. They circled the well. Huge, heavy imprints pressed deep into the earth. They weren't fresh, but they hadn't faded either, like the ground refused to forget them. Suddenly, the garden gate groaned open. Noah and I spun around, but no one was there. The path beyond the gate was empty, the road stretching into the distance. We ran back inside and locked the doors, our breaths ragged. When Aunt Margaret returned that evening, I confronted her. The well, the writing, the footprints. Who was it? For the first time, I saw her mask crack. She sank into a chair, her hands trembling against her lap. "You shouldn't have gone near the well," she whispered. That's where it began. Her eyes lifted to mine, wide and glassy. I thought he had forgotten this place. But he hasn't. He always comes back. And once he knows your name, Emma... Her voice faltered. He will start calling it. That night, long after midnight, I woke to the sound of someone whispering outside my window. It was my name. At first, I thought it was just a dream. The voice was so soft, so close, that it felt like it was slipping into my thoughts rather than passing through the air. But when I sat up in bed, Noah was already awake, his eyes wide, his blanket clutched to his chin. "Emma," he whispered. "It's saying your name." I froze. The sound came again, drifting through the thin glass of the window. A man's voice, low, rasping, broken, like dry leaves dragged across the ground. "Emma." Every syllable was a pull, an invitation. My legs moved before my mind agreed. I crept to the window, each step trembling, my breath shallow. The curtains swayed as though stirred by a breeze, though the air in the room was still. When I pulled them aside, The garden lay under the silver wash of moonlight, and there, at the edge of the path, stood the figure. Tall, watching, waiting, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. And even from here I could see the darkness where its face should have been. The shadows clung to it, bending the light around its shape. It raised a hand, long, thin fingers extended toward the house. Toward me. The voice deepened. "Living!" Noah cried out, breaking the spell. I stumbled back from the window, slamming the curtains shut. Within moments, Aunt Margaret burst into the room, her nightgown dragging along the floor, her eyes wild with fear. "You heard it," she gasped. Not a question, a statement. I nodded, my throat dry. She crossed the room in 2 strides and gripped my shoulders. "You must never answer. Do you understand me? No matter what it says, no matter what it promises, do not speak back." "What does it want?" I demanded. My voice cracked. Her expression collapsed into something between sorrow and guilt. "It wants the same thing it always wanted," she whispered. Away inside, the house groaned then, as though something pressed against its walls. The sound of claws scraping the wood returned, low and deliberate, moving along the siding just beneath the window. Aunt Margaret lit a single candle and placed it on the windowsill. The scratching stopped. The air shifted. The figure was gone. Only then did she let go of me. "Tomorrow," she said, her voice hollow, "you'll know the truth. I can't keep it from you anymore." That night, I didn't sleep. The voice echoed in my skull long after it faded, repeating my name, each time softer, closer. And though I tried not to, part of me wanted to answer. The morning felt wrong. The sunlight that streamed through the curtains was pale, sickly, like it hadn't traveled the full distance from the sky. I felt heavy, as though the whispers from the night before had drained me. Aunt Margaret waited for us in the kitchen. Her hair, usually pinned neatly, was loose around her shoulders, and her hands shook as she poured tea. She didn't speak until Noah and I sat across from her. "You deserve to know," she said quietly, "but you must listen without interruption. If you interrupt, I won't be able to say it at all." Her eyes flicked toward the window, as if even daylight wasn't enough to protect us. I nodded. Noah stayed silent. She folded her hands and began. "When I was your age, Emma, this house was already old. My father built the garden wall to keep things out, not in. He never told us what he feared, only that the gates must be locked after dark. One summer, I grew careless. I was 15. I wanted to prove I wasn't afraid." Her lips trembled as she spoke. "So I stayed outside past midnight. I waited by the well, daring myself not to run. That was the first time I saw him." Noah shifted nervously. Aunt Margaret's voice dropped. "He looked the same then as he does now. Too tall, too thin, too still. His face, wrong, as if it could not decide what to be. And when he spoke my name," she pressed a hand to her chest. "It wasn't just sound. It was a weight, a pull, like the world itself wanted me to answer." She paused, her gaze distant. I nearly did, but my father dragged me inside before the word left my lips. He slammed the doors, nailed them shut, and told me, "If you let him in once, he never leaves." I swallowed hard. But why us? Why now? Her eyes met mine, sharp and filled with sorrow. "Because I failed." Silence pressed heavy against the walls. She continued, her voice breaking. "Years later, after my parents were gone, I thought I could live with him circling outside. I thought if I ignored him, he would fade. But one night, I heard my brother's voice calling from the garden. He had been dead 3 years. My stomach dropped. I answered," she whispered. Tears slid down her cheeks. "And from that moment, he has never stopped coming back." Noah gripped my arm so tightly it hurt. "So what does he want?" I asked. Her eyes darkened. "He doesn't just want to come inside. He wants to belong. He wears the voices of the dead, the shapes of the forgotten, until someone invites him home. And when he does, he isn't alone." The air grew colder. Every candle in the kitchen flickered. And then, faint but clear, a new voice drifted through the open window. It was my mother's. "Emma, let me in." It was impossible. My mother was 3 towns away, alive and safe. She wasn't here. She couldn't be here. And yet, the voice outside the window was hers. Clear, familiar. filled with the same warmth she used when tucking me in at night. "Emma," it called softly. "Sweetheart, open the door." My chest tightened. My throat burned. Every instinct told me to run to her, to fling the doors wide. But Aunt Margaret was faster. She slammed the shutters closed, bolted them, and pressed her back against the wall. Her face was ashen. "Don't listen," she hissed. "It isn't her." Noah didn't move. His eyes glistened as he whispered, "But it sounds just like her. What if it really is Mom? What if something happened, and she—" "No." Aunt Margaret's voice cracked like a whip. "That thing knows what voice will break you. That's how it works. It doesn't ask. It tempts." Outside, the voice grew more urgent. Softer, pleading. "Emma, it's cold. I've been walking for hours. Please, baby, let me in." Tears stung my eyes. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice slipped through anyway, curling around my thoughts like smoke. Noah grabbed my arm. "Emma, she needs us." I shook my head violently. "It's not her. It can't be." But his grip tightened, desperate. "You don't know that. What if Aunt Margaret's lying? What if she doesn't want us to see Mom?" The words stung. A seed of doubt rooted in my chest. Aunt Margaret moved between us, her voice shaking. "If you open that door, Noah, you'll kill us all." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then the voice outside changed. It was no longer soft, no longer pleading. It was angry. "Emma," it rasped deeper now. Sharper. "Let me in." The shutters rattled. The walls groaned as though the house itself feared being torn apart. Noah stumbled back, his face pale, his certainty crumbling. The voice grew louder. A chorus now, not just our mothers, but dozens layered together. Men, women, children, all begging, all demanding. "Let us in." Aunt Margaret seized a rusted iron key from a chain around her neck and slammed it onto the table. It glowed faintly, as though lit from within. "This house is the only thing keeping him out," she said, her voice raw. "But even a house has limits. And every night, he grows stronger." The pounding outside stopped. The voices cut off mid-word. The silence was worse. Then, slowly, 3 knocks echoed against the front door. 1, 2, 3, and a voice, colder than all the rest, whispered, "Tomorrow night, Emma. You'll answer." I couldn't stop staring at the iron key. Its surface shimmered faintly, even in the dim kitchen light, like it held its own pulse. Aunt Margaret's fingers curled protectively around it, as if she feared the house itself might snatch it away. "What is it?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. "A ward. This house is lined with them. Old iron, old blood, old promises. But this one is different. It's the heart of the lock. Without it, the walls would breathe him in." Noah frowned. "That doesn't make any sense. It's just a key. If he's so dangerous, why not destroy him instead of hiding from him?" Aunt Margaret's face twisted with a pain that looked older than her wrinkles. "Because you cannot destroy what doesn't belong to this world. You can only keep it out. Or," she hesitated, the words catching, "you can let it in." Her gaze slid to Noah. For the first time, I saw a real fear in her expression. Not of the figure, but of my brother. That night, I noticed a change in him. Noah didn't laugh the way he used to. He didn't cling to me when the floorboards creaked. Instead, he sat by the window long after midnight, staring out into the dark. I pretended to sleep, but I saw him, lips moving silently, as though answering whispers I couldn't hear. The scratching along the walls returned. Long, deliberate, closer now, almost playful. When I finally drifted into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of the well, the moss, the carvings, and a face rising from the dark water, blurred, shifting, wrong. It smiled without lips and said in my mother's voice, "He'll open the door, Emma. Not you. Him." I woke with a gasp. Noah's bed was empty. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stumbled into the hall. A faint glow came from below, candlelight. The air was heavy, humming with the weight of something waiting. I crept down the stairs, careful not to make a sound. And there he was, Noah, standing at the front door, the iron key in his hand. His small fingers trembled as he raised it toward the lock. "No," I hissed. He froze, shoulders rigid, like a puppet caught mid-pull. Slowly, he turned his head. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, and when he spoke, it wasn't his voice. "Emma, open it for me." "Noah, stop." My voice cracked, echoing in the hall. The candlelight flickered as if the walls themselves flinched at the sound. Noah's hand hovered inches from the lock, the iron key trembling between his fingers. For a heartbeat, his eyes cleared. "Emma." His voice was small, confused, but then his expression twisted, something cold pulling at the corners of his mouth. The whisper slid out of him in a rasp, not his own. "Just a turn, and it's over." I lunged. My hand closed over his wrist, forcing it back. The key burned hot against his skin, so hot I swore I smelled flesh searing. He didn't even flinch. "Let me go," he hissed. His voice doubled, his own tone laced with something deeper, older. "He's waiting." The front door shuddered violently, as though struck from the outside. Dust rained from the ceiling. The bolts groaned in their sockets. Aunt Margaret appeared at the top of the stairs, her hair wild, her face ghost white. "Don't let the key touch the lock," she screamed. Noah thrashed against me, stronger than he had any right to be. His eyes rolled back, his mouth opening wider than humanly possible, a guttural sound spilling out, half growl, half plea. "Emma, please." For a moment, I faltered. It sounded like my brother again. And then the door cracked. Just slightly, a splinter down the center. Cold air burst through, smelling of wet earth and rot. Through the fracture, I saw it. The figure. Standing impossibly close, though I hadn't heard the gate, hadn't heard steps. Its faceless head tilted, its long fingers stretching toward the gap. The shadows around it pulsed, alive, writhing. It spoke without moving, and a sound came from everywhere at once. "Give me the key." Noah's body convulsed. He screamed, the sound raw and torn, as if his own throat didn't belong to him anymore. The key rattled in his hand, trying to twist itself free. I wrenched it from his grasp and stumbled back. The moment the key left his hand, Noah collapsed, gasping, sobbing, human again. The door groaned, the crack widening. Aunt Margaret charged down the stairs and snatched the key from me. She pressed it against the splintering wood and shouted words in a language I didn't recognize. The iron glowed, not faintly this time, but blinding, searing. The crack sealed. The pounding stopped. Silence fell, but I knew it wasn't over. Aunt Margaret sagged against the door, clutching the key like a lifeline. Her eyes glistened with despair. "He's closer now," she whispered. "Every night the barrier thins. Soon, even the key won't hold him." She turned to me, her face hollow. "And when that happens, Emma, someone must take my place." We carried Noah back upstairs, his face pale and slick with sweat. He clung to me, shivering, muttering words that didn't make sense. I wanted to believe he was just exhausted, but the way his eyes darted to the shadows told me the thing outside hadn't truly let him go. When he finally drifted into uneasy sleep, I found Aunt Margaret sitting alone at the kitchen table, the iron key laid in front of her. She looked smaller somehow, as if the house itself had been feeding on her strength for years. I sat across from her. "What did you mean? Someone has to take your place." She didn't answer at first. She just ran her finger along the grooves of the key, tracing it like a wound that never healed. Finally, she spoke, her voice a whisper that cracked with every word. "This house isn't just a house. It's a seal. My father built it with stone and iron and blood, binding the door between our world and his. But seals don't last on their own. They need a keeper." Her eyes lifted to mine, weary and wet. "I've been that keeper for 40 years. The words sank like lead in my stomach. "You mean you've been fighting him all this time? Alone?" A hollow laugh slipped from her. "Not fighting, enduring. Every night he comes. Every night I hold him back. But the house takes its toll. It feeds on me as much as it holds him. I thought maybe I could finish my life before passing it on. But then your mother called. She begged me to take you in for a week." Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. "And when I saw you step through that door, Emma, I knew it wasn't by accident. The house wanted you here." I pulled back, shaking my head. No, I won't do it. I'm not going to spend my life locked in this nightmare." Her eyes softened, almost pleading. "None of us ever chose it. The house chooses. And now he's seen you. He knows your name. That's all it takes. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then from upstairs, Noah screamed. I bolted up the stairs, Aunt Margaret close behind. We burst into the bedroom to find Noah thrashing in bed, his small hands clawing at his throat. His eyes were rolled back, his lips moving in frantic whispers. I grabbed him, shouting his name, but he didn't respond. His voice, no, not his, rasped out in that same jagged tone. Let me in, Emma, or I'll take him instead. The shadows in the corners of the room writhed, thick and alive, creeping closer to Noah's bed. The temperature plummeted. The walls groaned like they were about to collapse. Aunt Margaret shoved the iron key into my hands, her own shaking violently. It's already begun. If you don't take the burden, he'll claim your brother. The house is chosen, Emma. The only question left is... Her voice broke. Will you accept it? The key burned in my hand. Not hot, not cold, something worse. It pulsed like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Noah convulsed, his breath rattling as the shadows coiled tighter around him, reaching like smoke with claws. Emma, the voice hissed everywhere at once. Choose. Aunt Margaret gripped my shoulders, her face gaunt and desperate. If you take the key, he'll be bound again. The house will hold him, but you'll never leave. The house will take you as it took me. The weight of it pressed down on me. A lifetime of nights locked in this place, listening to footsteps outside, whispers at the windows, the endless scrape of claws. A prison not made of walls, but of fear. I looked at Noah. His lips were blue now, his small body arching against an invisible grip. His eyes snapped open, and for a moment through the fog he saw me. Don't let me go, he choked. I had seconds, maybe less. The voice laughed, low and jagged. He's mine already. Give me the key, Emma. Open the door. Be free. And I almost believed it. Almost. But then I remembered the writing carved into the well. Do not let him in. With a scream, I pressed the key to my chest. The iron seared my skin, the smell of burning filling the air. The house trembled. The walls shuddered. The shadows screamed as if scorched. The key fused to my skin. My veins lit up with fire. I felt the house's weight slam into me, chains of stone and iron and memory coiling around my soul. The whispers didn't vanish. They poured into me, endless, filling every corner of my mind. Noah gasped, the shadows ripping away from him like smoke caught in a gale. He collapsed, sobbing alive. The figure outside shrieked, a sound like every voice in the world tearing apart at once. The walls groaned, but the house held. The cracks sealed. The whispers faded to a dull roar inside my own skull. When it was over, I was still standing. Barely. Aunt Margaret knelt at my feet, tears streaming down her face. It's done, she whispered. The house has you now. Noah clung to me, his small arms wrapping around my waist. Emma, what happened? Are you okay? I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell him everything would be fine, that we'd go home tomorrow, that Mom would be waiting. But the words stuck in my throat, because I knew the truth. I wasn't leaving. Not now. Not ever. That night, when the clock struck 12, I heard the footsteps again. Slow, heavy, circling the house. But this time, the whispers didn't come from outside. They came from inside me. And I whispered back,